can we just go around the room and say, quick name, whether you're with Sustainable or Foundry, and if you have a startup, you can say what you're doing, but you don't have to.
Can I start?
Please.
So I'm Ken. I run Quater, which is part of the parent organization of Foundry. We run the general peer cohort model. Tonight is my daughter's 8th birthday, so I will be speaking out. Thank you so much for coming. Our entrepreneurial initiative is we are running this meta program for peer cohorts, and thank you all for participating.
Cool. Thanks, Ken. So I'm Tina. I originally started with Foundry Utah, but now I'm helping with Foundry Quater, which Ken described. If there's interest from any of you in participating in a summer cohort, please email me or just tell me after this if you're interested. We'll put your name on the list. Let's have Travis introduce yourself, and then we can kind of go around real quickly.
Sure.
So Travis is a Foundry OG.
I am.
Well, let's make Travis do it in front of where the camera.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do that. And while I'm sort of doing that, if you guys wouldn't mind,
We'll
I think
shift over.
Yeah, shift over and sort of get close. It's going to be a dialogue, not a transmission. And so I'll just prepare you to move from where you're at. So I'm here. Okay, just want to make sure I'm positioned. So my name is Travis Corrigan. As Tina said, I'm a Foundry OG. About 6 years ago, this month, some friends and I were getting done with our undergrad class in entrepreneurship, and we discovered that we all had businesses we wanted to work on. Everyone was telling us that those were bad ideas and we should go get jobs. And we decided to take the summer to figure out the first 2 steps. There's nothing in our classes, and there's nothing that taught us what the first 2 steps might be or how to navigate them, and there was nothing in the program suite within Utah that we suspected would help us out with that. And so we decided to meet on Monday mornings very early and talk to each other about our businesses and essentially get angry with each other to push ourselves to be the better versions of ourselves that we could be. And we did that for a couple of weeks, and then eventually you caught wind and we called it Foundry. So I'm super stoked to hear that it's still going in various forms. Super stoked to be here tonight. You guys have a lot of other interesting things to do on Wednesdays, like watch Gilmore Girls or whatever's on Wednesday nights. So I appreciate you guys taking time to battle traffic to come talk to me about that. I'll stop talking because I want to hear who you guys are and what you guys are up to, and hopefully get a sense of how I can make this more powerful for you guys.
We just start over here and then work our way.
All right. Hi, Tyson. I was part of Foundry Cohort 1, so I'm just alumni Foundry. My company is Advanced Fitness Technologies, just creating smarter fitness equipment for the fitness and gym industry.
I'm Jerry, and I'm working on Television, which is an experiential platform where it connects person A with person B to figure out what they would like to do when they're traveling in the city, like a cool powder stash, or this is the bar that opened on the city, things like that.
I'm Harry. I run a startup called Wall Fixers. We repair internal drywall ceilings on walls. I've always been a sustainable startup person from pretty much when they got going. So run my business out of the space. Thanks.
I'm Miriam. I was in F7 with Tina at first, and I kind of hung around the Foundry a little bit, and I'm working on a business called Ideas Compete. So if you need a video for your website, and you do need a video for your website, then you can say, okay, this is what I want it to be funny, or I want it to be smart, I want it to include these facts. And video artists will create videos, and you pick the winning video and you pay them. And it's typically a tenth of what it would cost to have an ad agency.
My name is Juliana. I was part of the Foundry cohort of 6 back in 2013. Then stuck around. I've also been involved in system startups. I'm working on Inspired Hub, a social enterprise that helps nonprofits and medical corporations solve problems with top university talent so that the students can be involved in a philanthropic cause as well as learn from hands-on experience. At the same time, the nonprofits and medical corporations can solve their problems externally so that they can better focus on scaling their impact rather than the problems they're having internally.
I'm Joe. I did the Foundry Utah in 2014. I think it was F8. And I'm doing a website called Climbing Tree at climbingtree.xyz. And it's basically a curated directory of apps and websites that help teach kids science, technology.
I'm David. I'm working with this fine gentleman on, excuse me, a next generation meeting tool, collaborative drawing tool called Limnu.
I'm sorry, called what?
Limnu.
And I'm Groot. I'm working with him on the thing you just described.
I'm Christine, and I'm Saeed, and he has several projects going, and one of those is A+ Tutoring, so it's a tutoring education company, and I basically do the customer service kind of part of that.
Yes, my name is Saeed, and we do also 3D printing and some other business like medical equipment and some other like art stuff, all online. Yeah.
My name's Kyle, and was part of one of the original foundries. That's where I met Travis back in the day. I'm working on a STEAM learning company. We're making programmable hackable toys for kids. So I'll be taking manufacturable tile sets to China within the next month. So we're probably 6 months out from launching. So.
My name's Angie, and I'm so excited that this is here because I love startups. Like, creativity is like, yeah, it's lifeblood. So I worked with Kyle with Swoop, that's when I met Kyle, and then I've done I've got a dog hiking business, which is my first startup, and I'm excited to be here tonight because I've got another one that's called Uber Wookie, and it's a forgive me cookie company that sends out like immediately cookies to whoever you made poo with. So,
Should be Uber Dookie then.
yeah.
That doesn't sound like good though.
It'll definitely get you into an accelerator in LA.
Yeah. I'm working on my code words.
Yeah,
Although that would be a really good shift, like you could, people that you want to piss off,
Yeah. Really got go full swing.
Yeah, I'm sure we went around the room and looked for iterations on that. That's a good empire of instant something.
Cool. So,
Oh, wait, hold
feel
on.
free to.
So, my parents
Oh,
are in
yeah,
the back
yeah.
as well. Guys, will you introduce yourselves?
So I'm Mike Corrigan. This is my wife Jill. She's a CPA. Looks pretty good for CPA, right? And then.
Dad, you're gonna need to use Uber Wookie later.
For Regions Blue Cross Blue Shield. I'm a drug provider relations over Idaho and Utah. And our holding company is Cambria. And they have a digital health solutions division where there's actually startups that come from ideas from employees within our company that they've collected for the healthcare industry. One of the most recent ones was Omega RX, or it's now called Med Savvy, which is helping people with cost transparency tools as it relates to we're actually shaking it up internally within our company, within the industry, making what's coming out, quality, and that type of thing. So we're looking at a lot of new technologies to interface with providers and hospitals.
Travis is our first startup.
Hasn't failed yet. It's definitely a lean startup model. Very iterative. I'm the first startup.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Cool. So, I think we just shift over.
Yeah,
to-
you guys all kind of maybe strangers, kind of quasi know each other, but I'm sorry.
No,
We were talking.
no, it's done. I was trying to get everybody to come closer.
Okay, yeah. So just like come closer. We can bring the tables in, because I know that your beers are still on them, and you want to drink them.
Yeah.
Can you see? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. I don't know if that will work, but I'll start trying to describe what I'm drawing.
I should be fine. Did it right?
Mom and Dad, you guys can get
God, he is so stubborn.
You don't want to be in the middle of the circle by yourself.
Circle them.
Yeah.
We need to come a little closer.
Closer?
We're all That's not bad.
It's weird if you guys are the only ones sitting on the couch back there. Just closer. Dad, I think there are some chairs in this room right here.
Oh, yeah, there's one chair here as well.
All right, so what I love about Foundry communities is that lots of people with a lot of different ideas and focuses are coming together, and that there's this underlying commonality between them, right? This craft of entrepreneurship is sort of the unifying factor. I think that was probably the magical piece about Foundry that we discovered, is that you could, in fact, help and teach people something regardless of the sort of focus of their startup. And so what because it's hard to see when you bring a collection of this together. Some of us are in tech, some of us are in education, some of us are in physical goods, some of us are in customer service, how these things actually are related to each other. And this is something that I've thought very hard about, mainly because coming out of the Foundry, coming out of my undergrad, I was worked at a boutique consultancy and had to airdrop into places like AOL and PBS and Fox Broadcasting and a bunch of other places that were almost non-overlapping in terms of their problem sets, and figure out very quickly how to solve something that was important. Typically we have dying old businesses, we need to find something new to do. We need to find something that is totally awesome and world-class, but is it so disconnected from our core strategic initiative that the board won't shoot it down when it comes time to try and put money around this thing? And so a lot of my experience over the last 4 years, and I'm actually a full-time employer. I have a job now at this place called Beachbody. They create in-home fitness DVDs like P90X and 21 Day Fix and a bunch of other stuff in their digital division. So over the last 4 years, I think it'll be 4 years in August, I moved to LA. I've been thinking about this, what is constant amongst things that don't look like they're related at all. And if you kind of get down to first principles, just a level set for the conversation, what we're going to talk about is uncertainty, right? So I'll give you sort of the punchline of what we'll cover. And if we want to add a couple of things that you guys want to know, because I want this to be valuable, I'd like for you guys to sort of reshift how you guys are thinking about your companies, and then hopefully walk away with something that you can actually implement tomorrow that's low cost and super powerful for you. If you want something else, so that's my goal. So if you guys have other goals, feel free to chime in. Does anyone else want to learn anything else or is interested in hearing about something from me? Okay, feel free to chime in. So we're gonna talk about identifying problems. The whole thing is navigating uncertainty, but we'll unpack identifying problems. I apologize in advance. My handwriting has gotten worse. Something about magic thing about becoming a consultant. It's like becoming a doctor and becoming a consultant. Your handwriting just goes down. So actually, I'm developing theory, particularly theories of value creation. Supposed to develop theory, and then we'll talk about some methods and actions. And this is really my personal tool set for airdropping into a place without a parachute and coming out with exactly the thing that the people asked for, and that will be useful for you or not. So anything else that anyone wants me to cover? Okay. So just a level set.
So can I go with identifying problems, but identifying priorities?
Identifying priorities. Okay, great. Cool. Anything else? Okay. So businesses are actually super simple. You distill them down to their basic elements. Is that a business creates X dollars of value and captures Y% X of X. X and Y are independent variables. If you look at any company, everything boils down to what value am I creating, how much of that am I capturing, is the amount that I'm capturing more than the money that I'm spending. Bob, you're an accountant. This is how you look at a lot of different businesses. At the end of the day, this is what it looks like to accountants, right? And so this is sort of interesting, right? This helps sort of really simplify, in some respects, how to find commonalities between a bunch of different stuff. So a lot of your MBA or undergrad will be talking about how to do this. Nothing that I found yet in any of the business schools, even at UCLA and USC a little bit, are really thinking that hard about this yet. I know those of you who know Rob Webker and Todd Zanger at the University of Utah, they're starting to do this conversation with their colleagues around business theory and what are businesses up to and stuff like that. And they're sort of shifting towards this. And so those of you guys are startups, right? How would you guys define value? And there's no wrong answers. We're going to find this thing out together.
What people are willing to pay.
What people are willing to pay. Okay, so value is what people are willing to pay. Great. What else?
Creates a benefit to the customer
A benefit.
that they wouldn't do on their own.
Okay.
So however you put that.
Yeah. I'll keep it simple and say a benefit and we'll know that they won't be able to get it themselves. So that's why they're paying you.
Right.
It's a shortcut to get the benefit. Great. Yeah.
I guess if a benefit is something direct or internal, I would say impact is maybe on the other side of that.
Okay.
And that could be, it could be social, that could be, it could be in the form of power, either atomic bomb power or like sphere of influence power.
Got it. So that there is a physical or semi-metaphysical consequence in the real world in reaction to what you've put out. Yeah. Right. Okay. So benefit, we'll call that impact. I like that. And I think what you said is it's on the other end of the coin, right? So this is sort of an internal thing. This is an external thing. Is that driving with everybody? Does that make sense? Okay. What else?
Building something people love and is useful.
Something
So they use it.
love and useful. Okay, great. What else?
I think on that same line, that a lot of value is emotional, right?
It's emotional. Okay, tell me about that.
Like, I mean, from like buying a shirt, it's the way we feel in that shirt more than that it keeps the wind off, right?
Sure.
Like, I pay a ton for emotional value.
Yeah.
Or it's the way it makes us feel, or the way we feel about the world around us, or our interactions with some of it's emotional.
Who are you?
Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Hi.
How are you doing, man? Good. So, welcome. Do you tell us a little bit about? We did a round of introductions.
Oh, sorry,
I didn't catch you. No, I just want to make sure that I know who you are and I can make this useful for you.
I run a nonprofit called the Green Urban Lunchbox.
Green Urban Lunchbox.
Yeah, we're a social enterprise that focus on a bunch of unique solutions to
Problems.
hunger.
Got it. That's awesome, dude. So thanks for joining in and jumping in. I'm gonna put a star next to it because we're gonna come back to this in a second. All right. So we have a couple of potential definitions for it. Let's talk about the willingness to pay. Does anyone have like a child blankie? Did anyone have it for a while?
Still have it.
Yeah. So how much would you be willing to pay to give up that thing?
Oh, there's no amount.
There's no amount.
There really isn't.
You can't, like $10 million, I can't offer you.
Seriously, no.
That's interesting. Why not?
Because nothing can replace it.
Nothing
can
can.
replace that.
Okay, so now
She knows your offer's not serious anyway.
Sorry.
Yeah, show me the money.
Good. So what else? Let's unpack this a little bit. What other items do you have in your life that you would not sell? A pet. Why?
Because of the love that's there.
Okay.
Attachment.
Okay.
Just like a blanket.
Yeah. Got it. What else? Socks.
Stinky socks.
So you would not sell stinky socks? I would sell stinky socks.
People are like, buying
Yeah. Depending on the stink. Who's got a child? Would you sell your child?
Maybe,
Yeah. Depending on the day. Sure.
but I won't sell my body.
You won't sell your body. Yeah. That's no. Some people would. Some people do.
Some people do.
Some people do.
Not me.
Not today. Okay. So that's interesting. Maybe value isn't necessarily the money that we're willing to pay. Not entirely. Not to say that money doesn't factor into it.
I feel like willing is the key word.
Sure. Willing.
Not the amount.
Yep. Definitely. So value is. But here's the thing, though, is that so let's actually talk about the willingness thing. So this gets into the kind of classic microeconomics thing, which is that different prices are price elasticity, right? Which is how much am I willing to pay for X, Y, and Z, right? At this rate, and would I be more willing at this rate, right? So you're sort of saying it's not necessarily about the money, it's more about the willingness. Okay, that's awesome.
Well, the willingness goes to everything else that's there, right? Everything else, like X value, as far as I'm concerned, is really subjective, except in certain cases, right? And everything there is subjective except the dollar that you get. And that makes Y
By the way,
subjective.
the dollar is subjective too.
That makes Y subjective, but Y% is not subjective. Y% is the amount of money you actually capture.
Correct.
Right.
Yep. But what is the value of that money?
Well, now we're getting metaphysical.
Psychological, but yeah, it feels the same way. But you said something really awesome, which is value is subjective, right? The reason why it's subjective is because there are two kinds of value. There's intrinsic value. So I'm going to write this differently. There's intrinsic value. And there's procedural value. and I don't think I'm actually getting this term right, but I will just roll with it because I'm a rock star. So, intrinsic value is the things that we value that we can't, that come more from emotions rather than rationality, right? These things called family. It's a sore subject for some of us, but not for me. Or just some people may not have had as awesome of a family. Do you offer discounts? Because my dad, I think my dad and I were the first customers, first two customers. It's a bullet point. Right, exactly. Family, friends, health, happiness. These things you cannot put a dollar on, right? And so, what the value is subjective, is that the big thing is that we all value different things for different reasons, right? And a lot of it is coming from a place of emotion, not from a place of rationality. I can't explain to you why I like CrossFit now and didn't like CrossFit 6 months ago, which is exactly the same thing. I can't tell you, I could create a bunch of logical reasons why, but that's just, those things are sort of creation myths, right? And this gets into what's called revealed versus stated preference theory, right? This gets into the willingness, which is, I have a constantly running interpreter that's sort of judging and commenting everything that's going on in my day, and I hear that voice, and that voice is sort of talking to me, and sometimes it comes out of my mouth and talks to others, and it's really excited about looking rational, like it has good reasons for everything it's doing. But if you know neuroscience, is that consciousness is the last to know. By the time, the way decision making works is that, you know, a lot of it is these older systems that really don't have capacity for language, or sort of making a lot of these decisions about the environment and the senses, and sort of making that decision, and you're really just feeling your way through it. And then if somebody asks you about it, then you kind of go, well, this is sort of why I did it, and it sort of doesn't, you know, it's as true and not true as any other reason that they can make up, right? And so, so we have different preferences, right? So value is not necessarily universal. People who are going to buy your drywall stuff are not necessarily going to be the same people, could be, but not the same people who are going to buy the toys. And certainly the decisions are going to be different. And because the decisions are going to be different, the pricing is going to be a bit different. Right? And so, something else I want to talk about. Oh, the money piece. So there's this guy from Harvard called, I think Michael Dolan. Dolan is definitely the last name. He's got this thing called perceived value marketing. Has anyone heard about this? No. Okay, great. So who's the marketing people that we have here? One. All right.
Yeah.
Do you want a marketing? Can we give you a marketing pop quiz so you can teach the rest of us?
Sure.
Or what it's like the keys to success for marketing?
Well, perceived value has a lot to do with it.
Perceived value. Got it. Okay. Talk to me about that.
Perceived value. Well, can you give me a little more context? There's a lot.
Oh, you're the expert. I don't know. You tell me.
Perceived value. So your goal as a marketer is to increase that perceived value to the consumer.
Yeah.
And there's different ways to do that. One of them is not talk about the product so much, because people are not attached to a product, but they're more attached with their emotions. So, for example, I work in a startup that does lawn care on demand, and so I do marketing for lawn care, which is really boring.
Yeah.
And really hard to do. And so instead of talking about how beautiful your lawn is going to look with our contractors, we talk about how much free time you're going to have to go to your kid's soccer game at the end of the day, rather than spend 45 minutes mowing your lawn.
Right.
So a lot of the focus is more on the intrinsic value in order for the consumer to increase that perceived value.
Yeah. Got it.
So that's you deciding that, or figuring out by talking to the consumers, that they have decided that the value of time spent with their kids is greater than the value of a beautiful home. So that's why I decided to do it.
Spending time on the lawn.
Yep.
Because the beautiful lawn, they still care about that, right?
But just less.
Less than, they care more about spending their time with the family than spending their time with the lawn. And again, that kind of goes into demographics as well, because if you don't have the money to afford to pay someone to do it, then the perceived value is, I don't have the money, I would rather feed my family, and I would rather feed my family.
The other two are your kids.
Yeah, so.
More time to watch Game of Thrones.
So then, yeah. So then
Or so I
maybe
hear.
it's more about work on your startup rather than mow your lawn.
Yeah, totally.
So it's more about taking care of yourself.
Show me a founder who has a lawn. Show someone who's not a founder. So the classical, Mom, check me on my math here. Businesses create value, capture value, right? This is the capture portion. We call this revenue, right? And and then you have expenses. And then those expenses, whatever left over between the difference, is called profit, right? Have I lost anyone? Just kidding. So this is called the incentive to sell. And this is from an inside-out perspective from the view of the firm. What Michael Dolan did, and which you so perfectly articulated, is that there is this other thing called perceived value. And the perceived value is got to far outweigh the money that you're willing to give up for it. Think about money as one of a number of measures of what value is, but is not value itself. And this is called the incentive to buy. This is firm perspective, customer perspective. Great, wonderful article out of Stanford. Probably some of the smartest neuroscientists ran a really clever exercise, and the title of the article is called Neural Predictors of Purchase Behaviors. And what they found was this, is that essentially, to summarize the long thing, is that people will only make a purchase when the perceived value of the thing that they plan to get outweighs the pain of the money that they're about to give up. And this gets to your willingness thing and the price elasticity thing, is that the greater the difference between this, the easier it is to sell.
I think somebody said that to me yesterday. I can't remember who it was, but said people don't say, I'll buy when it's equal. They say, I'm going to pay money for something when I believe the value I'm getting is greater than the money that I'm paying.
That's absolutely
Only
true.
greater.
People only buy, and what this neuroscience thing proved is it showed the argument in the brain between the pain side, which is, I'm giving up money, to the pleasure side, we're like, I'm about to get some cool shit. I'm going to swear during this. Is that okay with anyone?
In front of your mom?
You don't know what dinner table's like. You don't know me. You don't know my wife.
You know.
So someone should create an app for swear jar, right? Just take 10% of the quarters you put in, give me 10% royalty. That'd be great. Raps are right. Like the argument between the brain, they show this very well, is that two different brain centers, and the one that decides whether or not you're going to get your cash is whether or not the value is going to be higher than the money you're going to give up. And I'm not sure on the exact threshold, but you can sort of say in terms of orders of magnitude that the more perceived value relative to price is going to be better. Except when that thing that you're planning to get doesn't line up with what you actually want. This is where the subjective comes back in. Is that the only time that this doesn't work is when this isn't in line with your preferences. Which sort of leads us into this relationship between procedural value and intrinsic value. So this is the subjective piece. So this is sort of what I hit on a lot. And when I got out of college, I went to AOL. You know, my NDA is up with those guys, so I can talk about this. I went to AOL and I worked on something for families. And then I worked on their mail product. And then after that, I went to a public company and I was doing some stuff in mobile commerce. And now I'm doing stuff in exercise. And my job, the box that when people say, what does Travis do? They go, Travis is the guy that can figure out how to do the right thing and all this stuff. And the way that I personally, internally, no, I'm not saying I've been successful at this. That got mothballed, all this stuff got mothballed. I'm hoping that something will actually survive long enough to make it to the real world. But in order to have our clients continue paying for us and not feel totally bad about that, we had to show that we were producing some sort of value to them, right? And so I was going, okay, well, these are all subjectively different, but is there anything that I can do, any way that I can think about this problem, the people that I'm talking to and interviewing, that can help me have a head start at the next problem? So if value is subjective, based on our perceptions and our preferences and our experiences that shape those preferences, is it possible that there is value that is objective? Is there a universal set of things that we care about, even though if we don't know what they are, or how, even if we don't know how to articulate why we value them, that I can sort of think about? And that's where this video sort of came in. That was super useful. And I apologize because I just realized that I sort of forgot a key component of this talk before I got into it. I define value personally as the regard. So to go back to your emotional thing, nice. I'm glad I did that. Back to the is the regard you hold for something, period. And some of that occasionally translates into transactions. In some of the cases, in cases of the kid blanket and the pet, it doesn't. So it's the regard you hold for something. It is the way it makes you feel. And typically, it usually makes you feel good. Which was awesome, because I gave this talk this morning, and Rob Webker was like, except for Comcast, I hate Comcast, and I don't feel good about any of that stuff. And I said, well, yes, that's true, but you continue to pay for internet. So clearly, the value of having internet access is enough to not only give money, but also be angry at the same time with the company you're dealing with, right? That's how powerful internet access is. And so you interestingly hit on something. So procedural intrinsic value, stuff we value because we value, a million explanations for it. I will get into some of this stuff a little bit into why. And then there's procedural value, which is stuff that we do because it gets us to one of these things. I buy a plane flight to come to my friends, and for me this week to see my family. And for you guys, it's community, right? Contribute to you guys. And I don't know if I'm going to do that well, but you know, that's the hope. This was worth the couple $100 I paid to fly up there. Well, sounds right. And so you pay for one, I had to cancel it, I buy a new one. I got an angry date at American, it's a long thing. But the point is that coming here to give this talk was valuable enough to me to deal with all that stuff. Time with the kids, right? Mowing service is not valuable because of necessarily the benefits that you get. The benefits become the sound bites that your customers get to use to rationalize to themselves and to everybody else why they're doing those things, but it's not why they're doing them in the first place. They're doing them for because it's getting them something else internally that matters to them. Time with kids is this family thing. And so what you look at is that there are a lot of things, and what I was trying to get at is there anything about humans, because here's the thing, the other unifying case for all of this stuff, creating and capturing value, is that you are, for the time being, until we make cyborgs, building this stuff with humans. Cyborgs are on the way. You guys know. Mostly the paralyzed stuff. Has anyone seen this, by the way? Side note. Quad, you seen it?
Boston Dynamics.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Like where they're putting these nanochips in people's brains.
Yeah.
Like bodies.
Quadriplegic paralyzed guy. And they did a surgery where they could literally, one of those massive plugs you put in the back of your desktop computer, for those of you who remember desktop computers, put it in his brain and then attach that thing to software, and the software is attached to electrodes that jolted the muscles. And all he did was think about moving his arm, and it moved his arm. Right, and so these integrations with exoskeletons, with the bionics, there are now there's implants, so similar to the cochlear implant that sort of starts understanding how that person thinks about moving. They're doing this a lot for war veterans. They're creating amputations that get electrical signals from the brain to pre-move so that it moves like a natural thing and they're not have that weird gait.
This is the beginning of Iron Man.
It is. Yeah. So for now, building for humans. Humans actually come, by virtue of just being human, come with a standard set of sort of distinctions and biases and things that we do. And the evolutionary psychology really wants to understand how much of our behavior can be explained by our genetics, right? And so the model that cognitive science and neuroscience and evolutionary psychology, those guys are getting together at coffee shops and they're sort of coming onto this model because they're doing brain scans and looking at a bunch of stuff, and they're saying that 50% is nature versus nurture thing, right? How much of your behavior, how much of what you do, 50% of it is genetic. And not necessarily, I mean, there are micro differences depending on who your parents were and their parents were and stuff like that, but just like consistently the human animal versus any other animal, we have some things that we do that are different than any other animal in the animal kingdom. And then the other part is 40% is the environment. You're just reacting nearly habitually. This is your nervous system reacting to the environment. And then 10% is actually your choices. 40% of your daily activity is all habitual, coming from the midbrain. It's how you guys can drive and think about your workday at the same time, or do anything else, really. And so, this piece, evolutionary psychology, is interested in understanding what is constant across all peoples, across all cultures, not just at this point in time, but through all of time. If you can understand that, you can understand why people are going to do what they're going to do, or you can have a pretty good guess of what they're going to do. And so what they found is that these things, these intrinsic values, are what I call human universals. And I call them that because I heard it said to me last week, and I'm stealing it. So that's sort of the intrinsic value piece. So how does this relate to uncertainty? Uncertainty is, and the definition of uncertainty is that, what's the difference between uncertainty and risk? Looking at you, you're like my guy.
Well, let's see. Uncertainty means I don't know what's going to happen.
Okay.
Risk means I'm evaluating the expected value of what's going to happen. I may have a small chance of something bad happening, but it may be very catastrophic.
Sure, got it. Okay. Yeah, wow.
I was saying I used to race motorcycles, and I would think about this same thing every time I would hit a jump, because it's like, all right, I'm uncertain about this. Am I willing to take the risk?
Yeah.
And the second that I was willing to take the risk is the moment where I'm like committed enough to just like hold down the throttle and fly over it, or else die.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Anyone else?
Actually, on that note, so I did freestyle skiing for a while, so I can kind of the more certain you are of yourself, your capabilities, the lower the risk.
To lower the risk. Got it. And how does that confidence get built?
By believing you can do it.
Really?
Experience.
Yeah, taking risks and succeeding.
Experience.
So I haven't skied since I was 12 because my parents made me wait till I was 13 to start snowboarding because they're bad people.
Repetition.
Repetition, experience. So the point I was going to make
Sometimes
was like if
inexperience builds confidence.
sometimes experience builds confidence. Inexperience, yes. I wouldn't say it builds it. I think you just start with something in the tank and you just draw down from it.
But I'm not sure that more experience necessarily decreases the risk. Not
Talk to me
most
about that.
things. Okay, let's say like I pick the right stock 40 times in a row. It may only increase the risk because now I may be willing to be so certain that I know how to pick the right stock that I'll bet the bank on the next one that the odds of me being right still haven't changed that much.
Right. So the
In most things. I don't
objective probability of success versus the subjective probability of
Yeah.
success. Yeah. So there's a guy in 19, these are all super awesome answers, and they're all in line with sort of my working definition for the discussion. Is this guy named Frank Knight, in 1921, wrote something called Risk, Uncertainty, and Profit, and he says, uncertainty is essentially, I don't know what's going to happen, and I also don't know the likelihood of, I don't know the range of possible outcomes, much less the probability of hitting one outcome over another. Risk is, I don't know what's going to happen, but I have a pretty good idea what the possible range of outcomes is going to be, and I could probably parameterize a probability distribution around that. And so what you guys are engaging in is uncertainty. It's hard for you to predict with any level of statistical significance what's going to happen with your businesses, right? That is why startups become high growth and more profitable, because if they were risky, big businesses would be doing them because big businesses are really good at incremental risky things. They're not very good at wholesale changing bottom up their worldview. So startups have to feel like that. And this is problematic from the driver's seat for you guys, right? So, okay, so what's it feel like to be under uncertainty? Now that you know you're under uncertainty, what's the biggest thing that you're challenged, the unknown that you're sort of grappling with right now?
For me, where revenue's going to come from next month.
Yeah, that's super rough. What about you guys? Same. But you guys are in a collaborative thing, and you guys are working through behavior, how people behave currently, and collaborate and figuring that out. So can you, I don't know how comfortable you guys sharing, what challenges you guys are facing?
Our challenges are mainly marketing. Yeah, it's mainly, we have a very competitive space. I think we have the better core of a solution.
Sure.
But it's communicating this subjective value and also being able to make enough noise and get it out to enough people. People, when they see it, a lot of people come in and talk to us and engage, and we're getting a lot of traction, and it's growing and everything. But we have such a noisy place, a noisy space that we're working in. There's so many competitors. It's just hard getting anyone's attention.
Yeah.
But also, we found there's key words that you have to say that we almost don't want to say. So, for instance, for us, the word whiteboard is something we have to say because we've designed it to look and feel like a whiteboard, like we're part of it.
Sure.
But if you say, hey, we're making a whiteboard, people are like, why? Why would you waste your time or my time doing something that everybody else has already done?
Yeah.
And once they try it, like anybody who's tried it, has jumped in and really started enjoying it and started spreading it with friends and everything.
Sure.
But it's getting over that leap, or that hump of, please just try it past that word. I know you don't like that word, but
Attention is our biggest problem.
Yeah, absolutely. You're working on something super interesting with your toy stuff. What's the big unknown for you?
I'd say well, for us right now it's pricing, and so a number of the things you're saying are ringing very true because we're right in the middle of, and it's interesting. They talk about noise, and our space is, and it'd be interesting to hear maybe earlier on because you guys, I heard about you guys probably at least like a year or two ago, I think. Oh, yeah. And how long have you guys been around now?
Full time for you.
It's because I was working at the holiday. Yeah, it's that time. Anyways, but yeah, so my space is interesting because there's noise, but as of right now, there's not as much noise exactly where we're at. So I'm very conscious of how we're pricing because if you're priced right without noise, it's much easier, assuming you're priced to perceive values, right? It's much easier to I guess, capture X.
Yeah.
Create X and capture Y, right?
Yep.
And so that's kind of where we're at right now is figuring out what that price is. What I guess what did you call it? I like your word, sell value, the value of
Perceived value? Oh, procedural value.
not the procedural value, but sell, where you have written.
Oh, incentive to sell versus incentive to buy.
Yeah, so it's like we know very well right now kind of what our incentive to sell is and we can make money doing that. But what are those things that we can do right now in the design phase when we're iterating to bump that perceived value up? And there's that thing where it's like you can never price too high in the beginning, right? Because you can always come down, but you can't go back up.
Yep. So, and yeah, go ahead.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So in a drone repair business, right, you can have two people who may need that service, but their perceived values can be hugely different.
Sure.
And so like someone had a rental property and it's in like some little closet somewhere, their perceived value is super low. And what they're about to pay for it is probably less than materials, right? Whereas on the other side, what's happening right now is people looking to put their house on the market and it's something that's right in that front hallway as people come in. The value for them is $1,000. They can't wait to get it done.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like finding, the value's the same thing. Essentially, the work is exactly the same. It doesn't matter where it's done.
The perception's different.
Perception is completely different. Maybe not even the person, but just where it is and how it's set up.
So you're absolutely right. And not only is it subjective, but your perceived value on something will actually change from time to time. You guys look at preference analysis. People, great example of this is I think Harvard, because those guys are awesome, did a study that says, what was your favorite band 10 years ago? And everyone said Smash Mouth because sampling error. And they said how much would you be willing to pay for a Smash Mouth concert ticket? And they wrote the answer and they said, what is your favorite band now? And they said something probably better, like Foo Fighters and or Justin Bieber or something dumb. And they said, how much would you be willing to pay for that, for the ticket, same seat, same thing? And the price was way higher. So your preferences change over time. You are willing to pay more now than you were for anything else. And they asked the final question, which was awesome, which is like, who do you think your favorite artist is going to be in 10 years? And everyone said Justin Bieber, right? And so people's value, perceived value, how they value things change over time. And they're also very confused about the fact that that's going to be stable over the long term. You guys have to know this stuff because you could optimize your marketing to focus on people who are about to sell and wait for the person who doesn't care about any of that stuff, because this habitual stuff is all about how the environment is shaping your reactions to things.
Yes.
Your preferences change when your environment changes.
Yeah, so that person may have had that same thing for years and years, like 9-10 years. But the month they decide, we've got to move to Arizona, right? Now they'll get that done, and they want it done tomorrow, and they'll pay.
Yeah, exactly.
Last week, they couldn't even remember it was even needed to be done. It wasn't even on their mind.
Wasn't even on their mind. Exactly.
Their loan was a slight problem. It wasn't even considered.
Definitely. So there's a lot of value to be captured with you guys. You're a great example of this. Is like no one gives a shit about the Uber Wookiee until they've made a right with somebody else, and they're like, that's exactly the moment that my service comes in. It doesn't help any other way, and it matters right then and there, and that's it. We're focused right on that. Right now, I was talking to you a little bit about the mobile commerce stuff, which is we did a gifting app, help people find gifts, and there was a lot of bad iterations, but what we found out was that there is a lot of people really care about this app when they are out of time and they need to get a gift for somebody, but they need to look like they didn't put a very low effort into it. Right, I called it the oh shit gifting moment. Right, it was on a slide to an executive. It was like theory of value, oh shit gifting moment. Right, everything else not going to work, but this, it matters a lot. And so you can understand and you can start cluing into how people are going to value things and when they're going to value them based on the environment. So I'm going to put a note in this. Will you remind me to come back to this in a second since I forgot yours? Okay. So, so then the other thing here, with the genetic stuff, is there anything perennially, just constantly, that we value, right? Who saw Star Wars? Most recent one. Who liked it? Who liked the old Star Wars? Great, awesome. Why do you guys like Star Wars? Exactly. You can't tell me. You all sat there and went like chunk, 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 and then you just spat out the first answer that came to your head, right? Here's why you like it. We love great stories. Disney knows this. The reason why Disney saw that Lucasfilm and Marvel were good purchases is because they said explicitly we are actively in the market for great stories and characters that people care about, because since time incarnate, we've been sitting around the fire telling stories to each other. And what's awesome is that they've been able, right, so buy movie ticket, good story with regularity. We pay for things that routinely deliver intrinsic value. And if you're a smart business person, you can sort of do this relationship back and forth. It's not one way, right? So you go this, buy good story, get the feel goods of the story by buying a figurine or riding a ride at Disneyland. If you can figure out multiple ways to capture value from the same value creation, it is possible, and that's what Disney is doing. They are tapping into some of the most universal stuff, and they're making a crap load of money off of things that anyone else could be doing. They're essentially repackaging air and giving it back to you, and making a boatload on it. It's a great masterclass. Yeah.
This is a little existential, but
I love existential.
Could you say that, so the time spended over the whole lifetime of a person, because that's generally almost 100% certain how long it's going to live. So the time they spend doing whatever they're doing, would that equal value for them?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. So we have the like time expended over doing something. Say time on something.
So you're asking, is the amount of time given up to do something also, so is time another measurement for value, right?
Well, I think that time in exchange for whatever you're doing or trading for it over the lifetime span of a person equals value for
that person.
Yeah.
You could make that argument, yeah.
So,
no,
that's all I think.
That's absolutely right. I mean, this is where you're touching into the fabric of the human condition. This is what makes great entrepreneurs great, is that they understand why people do what they do. I was just at Apple yesterday, and we were talking about why moving something 3 pixels to the left matters. You're not rationally going to know that, but they understand deeply that your sensors are picking things up, and you'll unconsciously understand this stuff. And that you won't be able to articulate it or understand rationally why you're doing it, but it just feels better. Right. So this is what I tap into. I spend a lot of time reading academic literature because academics spend a lot of time understanding the human condition and documenting it for future generations to read. And unfortunately, it's locked up in academese, and it's really hard to read that stuff. If you can kind of get over that hump, most of the things that you're looking for tie into this. And so any problem that you're working on, any problem domain that you're doing, your product is the procedural value for some deeper human universal. So if you're trying to find an extremely compelling startup and you're trying to find something that really resonates with people, dive deep into what you think the intrinsic value is. So that's it, and that's my substrate that I operate from, is that I just work off of this model. I just go, people come with a bag of stuff, they care about this, and then on top of that, they situationally care about other things, right? And it just kind of gets more and more refined from there.
So do you feel like the environment then changes those intrinsic values, or just reprioritizes them?
Reprioritizes them and changes their expression. My favorite question to ask is, what is the Snapchat of the 1880s? Morse code. Exactly. How did you do that?
I went back in time.
You did. Human universals are universal. Their expression is different, and it changes as the environment changes. We had parchment. Actually, we had stones. Thanks, Moses. And then parchment, and then some other things, and some other things, some other things, and now we've got Snapchat. Where you can find is that the expression, you guys are laughing.
There's a bunch of history that we have Snapchat.
I'm not sure, maybe I should have drawn some of it down.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, this is Snapchat. Snapchat is rocks.
Yeah.
Rocks. Yeah, rocks are here. Actually, rocks are higher. Snapchat. So but if it helps you if you understand what it is about communication that matters, then you can understand. You can sort of draw this line, and you go, this is where we are now, and you can start going like this. And so if you want to find a really juicy problem that'll make you billions of dollars, do that.
Are things cyclical though? Shouldn't it be a circle? Like we just go back to rocks.
I don't know. Let's have this conversation in 2050 and see how it goes.
We get there.
But you sort of if you look at
That's fine.
if you look at evolutionary psychology of humans, 2.5 million years ago, we weren't even Homo erectus. We're not even the species we are now. It was pre-Neanderthal. So Homo is something else. So if you talk to anyone in technology, everyone thinks that it started in 1970 in Silicon Valley with Apple. Right? You are here. This is when if you had to talk to anybody in tech, especially from the Valley, they were like, oh, it started here. No, it didn't. Who's seen Space Odyssey 2001?
Long time ago.
Long time ago. Does anyone remember the opening scene?
Yeah, there's kind of
It's a monkey, and he finds a bone, and he's like moving it around, and then he hits his friend with it, and goes, "Oh my gosh, I can do this thing!" Right? It's the joke. You can stop the movie there because the entire movie is about our relationship with technology. Our brains formed the capacity to make tools, technology to amplify our biological abilities. At the same time, it developed the ability to communicate. Technology is so important to our ability to survive as a species and adapt to our environment that if you understand, you look at the research in human-computer interactions, it's not about computers, it's about human-tool interaction. You can start understanding the anthropological antecedent to whatever it is that you're working on. I used a lot of college words just then. Did that make sense? I'm sorry, when I get excited, my PhD brain kicks on. If you understand the fact that we are tool makers and we create tools to adapt to our environment, you understand why people will buy things. And since we created language for these things happen now. And what's cool is that over time, as we got better at adapting, we got time to start fucking caring about that stuff. Up above is not die. Still the primary one, still the priority. So you talk about priorities, they do shift except for the one that says don't die. The exception of suicide cases, but let's not get into that. So if you're trying to create a theory of value, so what is a theory of value? Theory is your prediction of what people will value. It is what you think people are going to value and how you deliver it to them and how they're going to respond to that delivery and how you're going to, and that's it. It's your prediction about what regard someone's going to hold for something and how much regard someone's going to hold for something. And if you know those two things, and everything else you can solve for. You can solve for the willingness problem, the pricing problem, the traction problem, all that other stuff. Who's got violent disagreements to any of this? So that's some sort of off-the-wall stuff.
I think in my case, I often have to solve the problem of what value they're willing to give for something, but also what value they're willing to give for someone else.
Someone else, right?
Yeah, and to bridge that gap is probably what we're talking about, is that connection, right? For
Sure, it's like what,
The solving the problem, and it's about the connection I have with that problem or that person. And that.
most of the
It's the
value that they're
incentive to
willing to
sell.
give is a value for them to have something very little that has to do with them. So that's not right.
I'll try and find the theory and send it, or no, I'll try and find the study and send it to you. Happiness responses to spending money. Number one, spending it on other people. Number two, spending it on travel. And then it goes just sort of drops off from there. So you're absolutely right. I mean, you're playing in a great space. It's tough to figure out how to articulate that value into terms that your customers understand.
Sure.
So your problems are twofold. One, finding this shit. And then two, articulating it for normal people who are just trying to get through their day. And you do this really well, right? You're finding all of the little sound bites that I can tell people about how awesome of not mowing their own lawn is. That's awesome. I love that. Because my problem is, how do I get people to fall in love with something they hate doing that punishes them physically and mentally, and in some cases emotionally? How do I get them to fall in love
And
with that?
sometimes that's part of marketing too, escalating the problem, the perceived problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even sometimes creating the problem, creating the desire for it.
Yeah,
As you say, you have a need that they didn't realize they had a need before.
It's true, that's a lot.
This company's called Beachbody. Holding court, that's exactly right. So, I'm not sure yet. Give me like 10 minutes. Go ahead. Okay. Let's just go someplace that serves cancer. Sure. No, we can do that. Okay, yeah, I'm sure. Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap up here pretty quickly because these guys have been super patient, but they've all had 2 beers and are starting to fall asleep on me. So, all right, bet. And it got hot in here, and you guys have been super awesome, and I've been sort of yammering. 2 options. We can sort of stop now, or I can walk you through my tool set. I would only be able to describe the tool set for what you could use on how I do this stuff. Actually, can you give me 3 minutes to wrap up? Is that cool? 3 minutes? Yeah. You guys got 3 minutes. So this is the theory of stuff. This is how to think about it, right? But this doesn't actually help you tomorrow do anything about it, unless everyone knocks on your door and goes, "Can you make this better for me? Can you help me figure that stuff out?" And so, does anyone else want to take a photo? Or okay, I'm gonna
Take a photo.
Makes me sad when people take pictures of whiteboards.
So I'm working. So let's chat, because this last fall I was working on something similar to you guys that I've decided not to work on now, but I can just give you the idea, and I would love to see you guys. Either if it passes muster, feel free to run it.
The whiteboard marker.
Your stuff is
that
probably better
tracks.
than mine, but if in the case
Right.
that mine augments your already awesome thing, do that. Okay, so what we've covered is identifying problems. And identifying the problem is not actually identifying problems. It's just identifying what people value and then removing the barriers to getting that thing, making it super easy to get a shortcut to that thing. We talked about developing theory. So what is the theory of value? Theory of value is your prediction about how this is going to deliver to that and thus create money. That's what we call it, developing a theory of value. Theory is a prediction about what people are going to value and how much, and how you're going to deliver it to them. What we're going to talk about is my tool set. That's done. I want to do this. How we're going to, tool sets I use. So, since we're talking about people, and my friend here has been talking about willingness, is that there's one thing to perceive value, it's another thing to act on it. The notion of action is important because we now are starting to talk about behaviors. If you look at the behavioral stuff, the behavior is really just a sequence of actions. If you look at sort of the architecture guys, they're going to say, well, yeah, it's a sequence of actions plus all the environmental forces pressing on people to sort of do this with it. That's not linear, right? And so the book, a couple books to read, a couple things to read is Notes on the Synthesis of Form. Marketing Malpractice by Clayton Christensen. And Sprint by Google Ventures, the Google Ventures guys. My tool set is this, is I spend a lot of time using anthropological research methods to talk to lots and lots and lots of people to create an experience map or behavior map. I go, tell me about a time when you did X, because you can't ask them, do you like this or not? Because it'll depend on the day or whether, it's situational, whether they're gonna like it or not. So I don't ever ask them whether people like it or anything. I ask them, tell me about a time when you did X. And they go, what did you do for, what was happening, and then you did your first thing, and then it was the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. Oh, that's interesting. Why did you do that? Like, oh, well, my mom was like vibing me, and but I had to like get here on time, so I just did this thing, right? And you go, oh, that's interesting. Like, so then what happened? This, and this. And what you start finding is that there are points of friction that prevent people from getting from where they want to get to where they want to be, where they are to where they want to get to. And this is really fast. But this is what ethnography is about. It is simply watching people what they do and then asking them why they do it.
What's that term called?
Ethnography. This is why, so at Beachbody, I create a bunch of stuff and we have a gym, and the gym is my laboratory. And people come in, I have them jump around on the TV and I watch them do something, and I sort of very well-timed places. Like, oh, that's interesting. What did you do there? Or why did you do this? And what it helps me start understanding is how people react in situations, how people are happening, and to help explain. And they will tell me why, and it'll be either true or not true, varying levels of true, right? And I double check that against the universal value stuff. I check that against the, sort of the what's the thing that's sort of driving the human that they don't know is driving them. And so what I do really is I just look at what are people trying to get to, and where are they starting at? And I go, what are the forces that catalyze this, that start the thing in the first place? Selling a house. Actually, it starts earlier than that. It's got a new job or something else, but now the house is a thing. Where I want to get to is wherever they want to get to. And by the way, probably purchase of your product is here. Right? Where they want to get to is some sort of intrinsic value thing. And so then I look at what are the paths to that and what are the forces that push on it. And there's three forces. There's functional, which is how do I mechanically get from A to B? There's emotional, which is how do I feel about this? And then there's social, which is how do I maintain my social standing or social graces and all this stuff. This is how this oh shit moment came to be. It's just like, oh, short on time, high on stress, high need to look good for others. Got it. I know how to create value for you. And so these forces press on these things and they create friction in getting from A to B, and your goal, your product's goal or your goal is to reduce that friction, right? I could go out and buy flowers myself, but then I have to contend with traffic, and that really sucks, and do I really care about this person enough, and a bunch of other stuff, right? For you, it's like solved, 2 taps, not a big deal. And if you want to look at a good evaluation schema for this, or methods, sort of strategy, is called Fitts law. Fitts law looks at, it examines really in computers, but it sort of applies generally, which is what's the distance my thumb has to travel to hit a button? How many times do I have to tap something to get something done? And if you count all of that up, there's mental energy being expended for that. And if you can reduce that and then attach it to a really awesome message, you can really, really create something that flies off the shelves and gets traction easily, as opposed to pushing a rock up the hill. So this is sort of my research stuff. And then once I figure this out, this becomes the backbone of my product. I work in software, and the backbone of a product is a user flow, which is user does this, then does that, and they can either go here, or they can go here, and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And then I create screens and buttons to help them guide through all this stuff. And once I create that, then I put it in front of people, and I put it in front of ethnography. And I just repeat that over and over and over again until I either find something that's workable or not, and I just sort of move on if it's the not. I keep my powder dry to work on something really seriously. Prototyping. You guys know this one, but that's it. And then, so you asked for prioritizations, Yeah. Prioritizations. So the stuff around perceived value, intrinsic value, the evolutionary psychology, the human universals, that's probably a good template to start from. And then you got to figure out, how does this apply in this specific domain, right? And that's sort of how you're going to fund it. And a lot of this stuff is helping that. The other piece of the stuff is, which of the forces really matters a lot: functional, social, and emotional. What else could I leave you with? Yeah.
How do you measure success?
Great. I created my own measure of success. It's not perfect. I call it the 8-second rule. It's a glorified first impression for a product. I ask 2 questions. First question: what do you think this is? Or what do you think this does? Second is, how does it make you feel? And I'm not just listening, I'm also watching them respond to it. There's a lot of tells that people have when they really love something and when they don't. So your confidence in this is a repetition thing. So in the last 4 years, I've conducted 75 weeks of design sprints. This is, you go from 1 week idea for something to testing it with 5 people on Friday. I've done 70 of those, multiplied by 6 people. So I've talked to about 300 something, 4,200, 420 people on 4 different problem domains. And I've done a lot of surveys, and a lot of open-ended surveys, where I ask kind of like, what do you think about this? Not do you like this or that, or 1 to 10, blah, blah, blah. Because that's sort of guiding people to give you the answer that you want. It's just, I let it free form, ask them, and then I take the time to look for the patterns in the responses. So the surveys is probably about 3,000 responses now in 4 years. So I've talked to a lot of people about how they value things, what's going on. And so my confidence and my ability to sort of suss this stuff out is workable. This may be a good thing for you to try or not. If you find another measure of success, go for it.
Wait, when you say surveys, is that in person or?
Right, either online or usually online. I don't have enough time to talk to people, real humans.
So you would prefer to talk to real humans?
I prefer to talk to real humans when I'm wanting to watch their behavior and map that stuff and understand it appropriately. And map this, and then map how aligned my product is to helping facilitate that. This is why I like starting with my 5 competitors first, as if it was mine. Because then they already built it, you don't have to build it. And you go, actually I have research for you guys. They already built it, you don't have to do anything about it, and you get all the feedback for free. Yeah, Deb.
So, and maybe you're just kind of answering that, but for some of the people that talked earlier is some of the noise that they have in the space that they're at.
Yeah.
High competitive, or whatever their challenges are. What suggestions or ideas would you have for them if they're in that place right now to navigate that uncertainty?
Sure. If you have a lot of competition, there isn't. You know, the way that I do that is that I go deeper into the human psyche. I go deep. I double down on the intrinsic value stuff. My industry's really busy. Fitness industry has been busy for a really long time, and we've contributed to some of that noise. And I thought, why us? Why would it matter? What I discovered in my research was 20 minutes of activity makes you a 30% better person instantly, or like within 20 minutes, right? Your cognitive, the whole suite of cognitive processes improved by 30%. That post-workout high is you living at your most authentic, optimized self. And if I can say you can routinely feel like that over and over and over again, I think I can convince people to do that. And so that's different. It's a different way to sort of approach the problem than maybe the way that your competitors are doing it. So if you're in a noisy, competitive spot, shift the way that you're thinking about the problem and upend everybody. Google was the last search engine, not the first one.
To do a better job of messaging your value proposition?
And well, yeah, first understanding your value proposition. Because if you're operating from a deeper sense of what value you're creating for people and how and why that matters to them, it's going to inform your actions way differently than your competition's going to do it. Because by the way, no one knows what they're doing. We all know together we don't know what we're doing, right? But so do your competitors, and they're all kind of looking to see what you're doing to see if they're off or on. So copying other people's stuff, not good. Go deeper, find the truth yourself. Do that. Yeah.
I think so. You have a lot of everyone has these external motivators, and then you have the
internal motivators.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then if you kind of try to figure out what the core concept is, then you can apply a conditioning model, which may or may not work, like operating conditioning, classical conditioning.
So I'm using this a lot so once a year, called New Year's, half the U.S. population becomes my target market, because the top New Year's resolution, top two is eat better, lose weight, right? So, and then by the third week of January, I've lost 90% of them. So I have a lot of people who are externally motivated, and that is the number one reason why people start an exercise program, choose to start exercising. And if you look at people who are exercising 6 months later, it's because they fell in love with the activity, not what the activity would get them. And so you can actually facilitate, you can create your experience such that every interaction is slowly grooving the transition from external to internal. And I can't say exactly what that is because I'm on camera and it kind of gives away a lot of strategy, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, you just have to incrementally condition them to need the product in a way that, like neurochemically, they just need it. It's really interesting. Sorry, I'm studying cult stuff in class right now. So
cult stuff? Yeah. That literature is super helpful, actually.
Yeah.
It is.
So you talk about universal intrinsic values. We never really got to a list of it. And like, what's in my head is food, sex, and social status.
Sure.
What else is on your list that's not that?
I have a slide from the evolutionary psychology stuff. It's a growing list, actually. Avoidance of fear is one of them. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? You guys are like
community, sense of like feeling connected to the world.
Connected to the world.
Yeah.
Security.
So you can find stuff from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Is a good place to start. I have a few others. Is that people love to feel confident. They love the experience of exercising and gaining new skills. Don't you guys just love the feeling of just like crushing it? Isn't that such an awesome feeling? What if I could just give that to you regularly? You would pay for that, wouldn't you? Totally. Right. That would make a lot. People love to feel confident. People love great stories. They love to explore. They like adventure. They also have a list of stuff they're trying to avoid, just like death. And I spelled that for purpose. So you're trying to get stuff and you're trying to avoid stuff. At the end of the day, I mean, we can go on and on and on. Each one will be just as true or not true, but people are either trying to increase the time that they have or improve the time that they're expending, or improve the experience of the time that they're spending. And that's because the time is the one thing that we don't have. It's non-fungible. Not yet. Not yet. Mr.
Medicine increases.
Not yet, Mr. Cold guy. But not until the gravitational waves hit us, and then it's going to be interstellar.
Just wait till you get into that black hole.
An interesting example would be something like cigarettes, right? Like especially with that extending time and increasing time, increasing the benefit of time you have.
Yeah, so increasing the time. So
because technically you're like reducing your lifespan, but you're increasing the benefit of the time you have.
Correct. It's a trade-off.
So you've
and this is also why we buy dishwashers, right? It's like it saves time. Sorry, people either want to save time. We all have a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
They want to either save it, or optimize sort of the happiness or the awesomeness.
Yeah, you go base jumping not because you want to live longer.
You're not base jumping because you want to live longer.
Right.
You want base jumping because you want the experience of being alive.
Right.
I think you have to look at the personality types too, the big five, and see what your market, like if they're really extroverted and open to experience, and they'll jump out. And then just kind of identify the people you're selling to, how they feel, and how they act that way.
The other is look for situations that cause people to do things. Demographics are correlated with purchase decisions. Situations are causal. This is then the marketing malpractice. People just want to get stuff done. And they're going to hire your product. They're going to hire your product to help you get that thing done. Help them get that thing done. For example, I want to hang a painting. I need to put a hole in the wall. What I'm buying is a hole in the wall. I can either hire a hammer or a drill or my fist. But the point is not the hammer or the drill. The point is the hole. If you guys can understand what the proverbial universal holes that people are looking for are, universal values, they will and figure out how to tell them to hire your product to deliver that with routine. You get grooved into, this is how Facebook became Facebook. Just tapped into that social thing, that need to connect. All right.
Is there more of a need to connect or a pain of not connecting?
Probably both. That is,
So the whole and pain.
you care about connecting. All right, guys, thank you so much. This was an awesome dialogue. I learned a lot from you guys, and thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you. If you stop the broadcast.